This episode was made possible by the BC Ale Trail. Arrive thirsty, leave inspired at bcaletrail.ca. Dreams can be big and can even happen in a small community. Welcome to the Cascadian Beer Podcast. My name's Aaron and I'm a Cascadian. In this podcast series, I profile the unique breweries of Cascadia, a region that has a strong presence in the international beer scene. Cascadia is a bioregion in the Pacific Northwest and the North American continent. It's made up of the U.S. states of Washington and Oregon, as well as the Canadian province of British Columbia. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome, and I do hope you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Last summer, I was lucky to explore the northern part of our province along Highway 16. I started my journey in Prince George, British Columbia. Trench Brewing and Distilling opened their doors in spring of 2018. In a little bit, I'll be chatting with their brewer, Paul, but I started the conversation off with one of the co-owners.
My name is Craig Schwenning. I'm one of the co-owners of Trench Brewing and Distilling here in Prince George.
Right, and how long ago did this project start?
Yeah, this started back, it's hard to say. We were in a business event in August of 2015, and that's when we kind of decided that we wanted to do something. And my wife was there. One of her team members was there, and her name is Bailey Hofels, and she's now part of the part ownership here. We're all equal partners, so it's her and her husband, Jesse, and Esther and I. And so we decided back then that we wanted to do something, and by the fall we had picked, we want to do a brewery. I wanted to kind of get into the distilling side, so that's why we're going to do a brewery and distillery. Distillery coming soon, but...
And was there much going on in Prince George at the time?
At the time, there was no craft brewery, and it was March of 2016. All of us were down in Mexico, and there was the weekend of the Ale Fest. It was crazy that weekend because we're sitting there and we're looking on our phones and we're like, holy smokes, the Black Clover just opened, this Irish pub in Prince George. Holy smokes, Crossroads Brewery is opening also, and they're another craft brewery, and they're open actually, over a year before us. Yeah, it's a great place, but those things happened while we were out of town, and we were like well down the path of planning this already.
Right. From there, what were some of the other challenges that you faced opening in Prince George?
I don't think really in Prince George or geographically, there's going to be challenges no matter where you are, especially in this industry. So you have to deal with, there's a ton of licenses, it's like 15 or so licenses that you get in order to open up. And then because we were doing the distilling side also, there's a big part of that was involved in that. The city was really good. The planning and development side is excellent. And then, but as soon as you start getting into the different departments that you have to deal with and different levels of government, we're dealing with federal government and excise tax, and we deal with the provincial government and liquor control, and there's just processes for everything. And it just seems like it would drag and it would drag and it would drag. And there was always some little obstacle. So, you get a big binder and you have all these sections in it and you just keep plugging away at it. Right. And that's, I don't know what to say to the people out there who plan on starting something like this. Just be patient. And, everyone wants to see you succeed and everything, but they have to make sure it's all done right. And it just takes time.
Right. And then why Prince George? I mean, did you grow up here? Did you move here? Like why was this the right place to open a brewery?
For us, we were here, and Prince George at the time didn't have anything. And I think back to the Buffalo Brewery days, and that was like the glory days for me in Prince George. It was before I moved off to Vancouver, and it was actually operational while I was down and living in Vancouver, and then it closed down. Yeah, it was a brew pub style, and it was the same as like all those Mark James Group ones, like Yaletown Brewery, Dick's Pub, Avalon, Big Ridge. And those guys, I hung out at those places down in Vancouver when I was living there. But I moved up to Prince George when I was pretty young, and I moved away in 1999 down to Vancouver. lived in North Van and lived at the Avalon, and then moved back up in 2007. And then I came back to follow my wife, actually, because she had an opportunity to do a dental internship here. And so she's a denturist here in town. Yeah, and then I was part owners in a family business, a locksmithing and security firm. And so I had a job to come to. Yeah, and that's how we got back here. And we started doing home brewing with Esther's cousin. And we built this little shed, and we did drainage and concrete floors and control panels. And my security background, all the low voltage experience, allowed us to do all this stuff. And so we had like a cool room. We had conical fermenters. We're doing homebrew at a level we would get about almost 38 gallons of finished product in one brew.
Right.
So we'd go there in an evening. 5 hours later, we got 42 gallons in the fermenter.
Right.
And we were doing all grain stuff, and that was really I had a passion for beer anyways, but that's where we started getting into this. And Jesse was along for that too, because he was a friend of our family and with Esther's cousins also. And that's kind of how it started. I mean, this is a great place to live.
Yeah.
There's tons of outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a smaller town. I sure don't miss those long commutes in Vancouver, and it's just it's a great place up here. And to be able to have a craft brewery up in the Prince George and add that into the Prince George area, and with Crossroads also, and maybe we'll get some more up here too, right? Yeah. My roots are really here, and all my family's here, and and Jesse now, he's made a home for himself here, and he's got family here as well. So,
all right, great.
That's basically why we're in Prince George, and we're loving it though.
All right, yeah, no, this is my first time here, and it's like, man, this is. We're not in the most picturesque end of town at the moment.
It's absolutely, it's not. But
but my drive in was great.
yeah, but it's interesting as well. So
yeah, and so then you mentioned you're really passionate about the distilling side. So then, when did you get into that?
I started getting into micro distilled products because when you're a coffee snob and a beer snob, what's next, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I started drinking that, and I started getting a little bit more knowledge around it, or just interested in it, I guess. At the same time that we were talking about it, my brother-in-law, he was also talking about it, and him and his wife have started a distillery down in Duncan called Stillhead Distillery. So that's Esther's sister and husband, and we want to do the same thing. Jesse and I, we took a 6-day course down in Kelowna with Mike Urban at Urban Distilleries, and they put on these workshops. And so we did that, and we did an extra day to develop gin recipes and stuff like that. And there's not a whole lot in Canada, for schooling around distilling, right? So you have to go to England, really. It's one of those things they say, do this in your garage for a while, and then, before you get on the big equipment.
Mm-hmm. The same goes for brewing.
Yeah.
Beer. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've done that. We've done that a bit. And it's just one of the things. I just thought it was a really cool business idea as well. Yeah. And, and I got a passion for it. My liquor cabinet is full of, if it's not fine Scotch, it's mostly micro distilled stuff, and I'm always trying things, right?
Yeah. And the still isn't quite operational yet. I mean, you still need to get a little more capacity going back there, right? So
correct. I mean, when you're getting in this, there's so much to do just to start a brewery, let alone a distillery. And I know for a fact, that's one of the reasons why we were delayed so long, is because we were trying to do both. We should have maybe just picked one and then not said anything about the other for a while. But, it just makes sense that we would start the brewery, because our brew house is where we're going to make our distillate, right?
Yeah.
So we have to get the brewery going first. But, with the beer, we need a couple pieces of equipment with that side, and we still need a couple pieces of equipment on the distilling side. Yeah. So that'll come. I think it's the nice thing on the distilling side is we're not in a huge panic. No. I want to get it done. Let's face it. Yeah.
And there's a beautiful still sitting back there too already in the warehouse. Yeah.
No, exactly. But we're not in a panic to get product out. We're not really rushed around it. So, we're going to take our time. We're going to make sure our product's really good. and up to our standard, much like we did with our beer. But yeah, that's our plan is take it easy and do what we do well, not jump into something and try and put something out there that's maybe not quite up to the standard that we would like.
What was it like when you opened the door? Like, how were you received by the community?
I think there was quite a few people who were interested to see us open, right? And the word was getting out. And I think, I don't know, we had like 800 Instagram followers or something like that already. And we hadn't even opened the doors, right? But so the community received us really well. And that's great. It was really great.
Did you run out of beer at all?
No, we've got a pretty big capacity, like with a 2,500 liter brew house. We'll get, once it's all said and done and out of the bright tank, we'll get between 2,100 and 1,900 liters of finished product. Like so we've got enough beer, but I mean, right now you go back there. I mean, I only got a couple kegs of amber ale, but there's some in the bright tank that's going to be ready soon.
Yeah.
So we haven't experienced that too much yet.
Right.
So yeah, it was man, it was just I don't know what to say, a whirlwind of activity, I would say. We were just flying to get open, and right down to the last day, we had some plumbing issue, of course, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then, of course, our plumber who did most of the work, he's out of town on a project to a local community and other local communities. So we called in a favor from a buddy, and he actually pulled one of his guys off of a project and fit us in. And so we opened that day at like 4:15. We had our occupancy and we were ready to open the doors. And we were like, holy crap, like now what? Like, so we're like, why don't we just open?
POS going to work?
Yeah, let's just open the door. We text a bunch of friends. Yeah. We had about 70 people down here. And we had some people like that. We had a couple from Lower Mainland. We call them our number ones because they walked through the door first. But they were just driving by to see, wonder if this place is open yet, right? And then they come in and quickly realized that they figured it was friends and family night, but it was actually just, we were open for business. So yeah, and then we had another couple of groups come in also. Other than that, it was kind of friends and family. So yeah, it was like 60, 70 people in here, and it was a great night. Like we were super excited, and it was like a highlight.
Right. From here, expansion, there's packaging to come, right?
Absolutely. So right now we have a canning line. It's from Cask, one of your typical microbrewery canning lines. And we've just got some labeling stuff to get approved. But we don't want to rush into certain things, right? And so we have to make sure our production level is a certain size before we can do that. So that's one of the things we're doing is we need another fermenter. Once we get that, then we can, then it'll fit that. As soon as you get cans, you open up another market. And I know people are anxious to get the product and stuff like that, but, or even to sell cans out of the tasting room. But, it's going to make a demand that maybe we can't meet. So we want to be careful that we don't disappoint people.
And then, are you going to be packaging, your distilling as well once that's
Absolutely.
Going?
Yeah, we've got some. I guess it's a podcast, so I could show you a picture of our label if you want to make a comment on it. But
paint me a word picture. Yeah.
Well, we've kind of got this European mount kind of thing where we started going down. So we've got the moose head over there, and we got two big European mount moose in the back. All of our bottles have some sort of European mount skull on them. So it's got this little dark side to it. Right. But it really does fit something that you would see in a craft. Like I think the labels are done really well. They're kind of on a topographical map in the background.
Right.
And then there's the lettering and our logo and stuff. Our trench logo that you see on our beer, other than on the top of the cap, you don't see it on the distilled stuff. It's kind of really marketed a little bit differently.
Okay.
It's definitely more for the distilled side, which I think comes across a little more classy.
So Prince George has really been a big part of your life. If somebody was to come here, what are some things that they can experience in Prince George? Apart from your place, of course.
Apart from my place?
Yeah.
Well, you got to check out Crossroads as well.
Okay,
and they've got also a phenomenal deck and a phenomenal restaurant in there, and they're doing a great job. The Northern Lights Winery, they're across the river, and it's a real class outfit. And they also have a little bistro out there, and it's a fruit winery, and it's brilliant. It's always a great experience going out there. But we've got, just in the downtown core, we've got some really awesome restaurants, stuff you don't see anywhere else. We've got Copper Pig, which is a barbecue We've got Batula Burning. Nancy O's Batula Burning has a Forno oven pizza place. Like there's restaurants that are here in Prince George, and they're a great place to go and experience. So,
all right. And if somebody was to come here and visit you guys, what would be a thing that you'd want them to walk away with as a great experience at the brewery?
I mean, just the experience, just to come in. Like, I think when I walk in this tasting room, I'm super relaxed. I can sit here and have a beer.
Well, I mean, we're sitting on a couch right now with this beautiful coffee table. So,
it's kind of 70-ish, but it fits, right?
Yeah.
We kind of made it this way so that it's like your own deck almost. And so, I think as a business owner, if you can walk in your own establishment, because you're always tuned into how the customer experience is going and stuff like that. And I can sit back and like have a beer and enjoy myself. That's what I want is to people to come here. Usually, we got some music on and we've got some live events and stuff like that. Come in, enjoy yourself and enjoy the beer. Like, taste the different ones for what they are.
Yeah.
Because they vastly are different in their own ways, right?
I'm trying right now and they are, yes, but they're all really good. So, and in terms of their styles, I mean, but they're very unique and there's nothing bland between them. So you guys are doing a great job here.
It's great. Thanks. Yeah. And then we always like to have a guest tap on. We were just out of guest beer for the last few days, but we got some stuff from Smithers Brewing, brand new brewery up in Smithers, and they're brilliant.
Yep.
And so that's going on today. And so try those because we really like to support our own industry. And we're friends with all the people from all the other microbreweries. I mean, it's a really cool kind of brotherhood that I've never experienced in other industries.
I mean, I'm slightly confused because you're wearing a shirt from Bridge today in North Van.
No,
so
well, normally I'm wearing a different. Yeah, I kind of advertise beer from all around BC, and even though. I really enjoy all the Oregon and Washington State stuff. Like we've got a bunch of growlers up here. We do have a Yukon Brewing, which is really cool, but those are our own personal growler collection.
Right.
And it's all BC beers and stuff like that. We really like to, support the BC beers.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Big thank you to Craig for his time. Really appreciate it. Now, this episode was made possible by the BC Ale Trail, and I was very excited to visit northern British Columbia. It was my first time up north, and I was just wondering where to begin. So I followed the BC Ale Trail. At bcaletrail.ca, you'll find the Ale Trail for northern BC, where you'll not only get great suggestions on what breweries you should visit, but also pubs, local restaurants, and other activities the area has to offer. And while on the website, you'll find a comprehensive list of every craft brewery in BC. There's also a calendar with great beer events and a blog featuring the stories of BC's craft beer scene. So whether you're planning a visit or being a tourist in your own backyard, let the BC Ale Trail guide you to your next beer adventure. Arrive thirsty, leave inspired at bcaletrail.ca. All right, part 2 of this episode now, where I sat down with the brewer of Trench Brewing and Distilling.
My name is Paul Goncalves, and my title is head brewer.
Yep, and where are you brewing?
Trench Brewing and Distilling in Prince George, British Columbia.
All right. And how long have you been open here?
We've been open since April this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So April 2018.
Yep.
Man, still brand new.
Yeah, very, very new still, yeah. Working out all the kinks. Getting our opening hours on the sign, right?
Yes. We had a little discovery this morning that the wrong times are up there on the sign. So... So you say brewing and distilling, and we did a little walk through the brew house there, but your still isn't up and running yet. So that's soon to be.
Yes,
right?
yeah. We wanted to focus on the brewing first and foremost and get that up and running, and then the distillings to come. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the next few months, we still have a few pieces of equipment to acquire for it, and then we'll get it started up.
All right. And my favorite question is, how did beer find you?
I was a baker for like 10 or 12 years, and one of my sisters who went to college in Florida moved to Portland after she graduated, and we went and visited them a couple times and just got introduced to a handful of like great craft breweries and really fell in love with it. And then 3 months later, I found myself buying like a little nano brew system for my garage, and it's all kind of took off from there.
Right. So how long ago was that?
That would have been in 2008, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you remember that first batch of beer?
Absolutely. It was terrible.
Right. But what were you trying to make?
It was the recipe was called Bee Cave Rye IPA.
Right.
Yeah. And it tasted like paint thinner.
Right.
Yeah.
In your reflection of making that, where do you think you went wrong?
We definitely rushed into it. Like, didn't do a ton of research. Actually, just found the posting on Craigslist for a guy who's making little nano brew systems out of his garage in Abbotsford. Went down and checked it out, and he offered to teach me how to brew on it. We were gonna buy one.
Well, yeah, that's good. So the maker of the system showing you how to use it. Yeah.
And it was a pretty bumpy road. Like the whole training day with him, it was me and my two brother-in-laws, and I remember picking like fruit flies out of the yeast before we pitched it, which was kind of a sign that that things aren't going so hot. Yeah. After that, we started doing a lot more research and like honing things in, and we ended up starting making some pretty decent beer there in the garage.
So what was that window then, that time frame to actual good beer?
Oh, it was about 4 or 5 months.
Right.
Yeah. At least first 3 batches weren't that hot, and then after that, we started really finding our groove.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. And then how did you end up here in Prince George?
My wife was going to school in Washington State while I was working at another brewery in Squamish. And when she graduated, she started looking for jobs, and we really didn't want to move back to the city, and Squamish wasn't really a practical choice for us to stay long term. So we started looking up in northern BC, and she found work up here, and then she ended up coming up here for her job, and I got introduced to the owners, Jesse, Bailey, Craig, and Esther, through another friend who was working at the at Crossroads Brewing, because they spent a lot of time there kind of drinking beer and developing their business plan. So yeah, we just kind of got introduced to each other, and then we ended up going into business together, I guess.
Like, this isn't like a great populous area of town.
No,
this is my first time in Prince George, and this is kind of on the outskirts a bit. So like what had to happen to make this space work, which is beautiful, by the way?
Oh yeah, it was actually a drywall warehouse before. And they've done a ton of work here. They re-poured all the floors.
Then the dusting alone, I can imagine.
Yeah, they refinished the entire inside. So I think they're in here for about 18 months before they actually got it to where it is now. So it was a pretty big job, pretty big renovation. Yeah, they did a lot of the work themselves. Right. Their friends and family. So,
yeah. And then there's a bit of an interesting story with the brew house out the back.
Yeah. So it was the brew house that belonged to Lighthouse Brewing in Victoria previously. And they bought it, I think, about 1.5 years ago as well. So it's been living in one of the owner's garage for quite some time.
You must have a pretty nice garage. Yeah. That's quite the size of the system.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an old system, but it serves our purpose as well.
Yeah, so, but it's electric fired though, right?
Yeah. So we have no boiler; it's all electric, but works pretty well. It's probably not the most economic way to brew, but it works for us right now.
Okay, right. And then you have 3 fermenters back there, right?
Yeah. 3 25 hec fermenters and 4 25 hec conditioning tanks.
Right. And so what are the types of beers that you focus on here like regularly? Is there like a flagship lineup, or do you just try and rotate everything through?
We definitely have like a flagship lineup. We tried to do a little bit of everything, really, just to get a feel for the market. The craft beer community is pretty young in Prince George. So we were doing a nice like hoppy pale ale, a Northeast style IPA, our amber ale, which is just like an American style amber ale with the pretty one-dimensional hop malt profile with like pretty good focus on like Northwest hops. Okay. Just a good like stout that we're just it's more towards the end of like an imperial stout, a lot more complexity.
It's a little
bit like chewier, like a little more body. And then our pilsner. So Jesse and Craig, 2 of the owners, they went to the Czech Republic for like 4 or 5 months to train in a Czech brewery. So they really love like a good like bohemian style pilsner. So that was one of the beers that they had to have.
Right.
So that's one of our definitely one of our flagship beers.
And you have a nice little pilot system back there too.
Yeah, for sure. We actually when I started with them here, they had one of the Sabco Brew Magics, and I was pretty insistent that we sell it because I wasn't super happy with it. It was a lot of work to brew a very, very little amount of beer. So Jesse, one of the owners, is actually a welder, so we built that whole little pilot system ourselves and ordered a bunch of parts online and got a pretty nice little pilot system. So it's got 180 liter production capacity, so we can do about three kegs per batch on our test batch system.
Right, and then you're just chucking those right in the tasting room, right?
Put them straight on the tasting room, and just do whatever catches my fancy that week.
Yeah, I mean, here at the time of taping, one on the list here is your pilot one. Do you have a pilot one on tap at the moment?
Currently, no, we don't actually.
Right.
The last pilot brew we had just ran out last week, and it was a black IPA.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you were saying it was quite a lot of work for a little amount of beer, but I mean, even to make a regular batch of beer, it's a bit of work because it's a manual mash tun back there too.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah. It's definitely a good shoulder workout.
Yeah.
Getting it mixed in. I was just talking to my wife yesterday. Actually, we just I brewed our first batch of our fall seasonal, which is going to be a cold brew coffee ale, and I did it with a pretty high percentage of flaked oats, and I was like,
oh man,
I was just like, man, I'm never brewing with flaked oats again. My arms and shoulders are sore as hell. But
yeah. And then from here, I mean, there's some expansion plans in the work. The immediate one, obviously, being get that still up and running.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah. All that kind of ties in with more fermentation space, just because with the fermentation space we do have right now and the amount of brands we have on tap, it's pretty hard for us to produce a large quantity of any one beer. Yep. So we're going to actually hoping to get a few more fermentation vessels because we do need more fermentation space to actually produce the distilled product. Mm-hmm. And then, with those two new fermenters, and we can start producing more of our IPA and pale ale, which are sort of the two brands we're really going to want to promote a lot in cans. So that's hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll get those new fermentation vessels closer to the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And then start canning.
Because you have the space in the back to do
March.
it. There's a lot of space.
Yeah, that's the best thing about this building. There's tons of height, and we have a big footprint, so we got a lot of room to grow for sure.
Right, and then how have you been received by the public since you've been opened?
Very well, yeah. It's definitely, like you said, it's off the beaten path a little bit. So there's they're definitely trying to bring the downtown core back to life in Prince George, because it did have a bit of a bad reputation about 10 years ago. It wasn't really the place you'd want to be. But it's sometimes a bit of a chore getting people down here. Once you do, they're definitely very, very well received. So, yeah.
Is there an absolute favorite with the locals that you find that you just can't make enough of?
Definitely the IPA. It's a little different than what anyone else is making in town, because we're doing more like the Northeast style. So it's a little more focused on hop flavor and aroma than just being very bitter. It's very, very, very drinkable and pretty well balanced. So it's a new style for people here for sure, and they're really, really digging it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And if somebody was to come to Prince George, I mean, what kind of activities are there to do?
Definitely lots of outdoor activities. Great hiking in the area. Mm-hmm. If you're into hunting or fishing, there's tons of that. That's actually what inspired their name, right? Trench Brewing, they named it after the Rocky Mountain Trench, and they kind of named a lot of their beers after their favorite spots to go hang out, like the Arctic River Arctic Lake and the Fang cave system and stuff like that. So that's what inspired the names for a lot of their beers. All
right, great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Paul.
Yeah, no problem.
It was so great chatting with Paul, and he gave me a great tour of the brewery. Really appreciate it, man. And also Craig, the first interview on this episode. Thanks again to him. And big thanks to the rest of the team at Trench Brewing. It was a great way to start off my trip up north, and I can't wait to go back and visit again. Big thanks once again to the BCL Trail for making this episode possible. You can find them at bcltrail.ca. If you like this podcast series, I do hope you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps keep this show going and supporting it. You can find us on every platform imaginable. So if it's not there, let us know, because there's a ton of podcast directories out there, and we want to make sure that we're listed everywhere. If you want to follow us on social media, you can at facebook.com/Cascadian Beer. I'm on Twitter at Cascadian Beer, and I'm on Instagram at Cascadian Beer Podcast. For more information about this podcast series and some additional details in the show notes, some photos and all that, head to cascadian.beer. That's the website. Thank you so much for your time and listening. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, remember, support your local.